Give me a little intro there, Gomer.
There's no turning back now.
Let's put on the show.
You're listening to the Station 71 podcast. My name is Mario, and this week I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Beth
and Brian.
So we got an interesting topic this week. We're going to be talking about my trip report. Also, we're going to be talking about some planning tips and tricks for a COVID Disney World, which is not something I thought we were going to be talking about on here.
Hopefully it will be an irrelevant topic soon, but
yes.
I guess that kind of it's going to tie in with my trip report. There's a lot of things that I think that they're doing now that are going to stay around, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this information is still mildly relevant in the future. But let's dive into some housekeeping and news first before we do that. We have first on here, Disney has released official backstories for the new Jungle Cruise characters and confirms a 2021 debut date. We previously talked about the fact that they are giving a little bit of a retheme to the Jungle Cruise. It's going to be more of a fleshing out of the Jungle Cruise, as we've learned. We won't go through all of these, but it looks like a lot of them tie into Skipper Canteen and Sea and all of that, which is really exciting that we're getting a lot of that over in our parks.
Mm-hmm. I think we've mentioned this before on here, just about how a lot of times we get nervous anytime they're going to touch a classic attraction that we love. But I don't know. This really sounds like they're going to do it the right way and tie in more story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that's for me, as we're seeing more information about this come out, I'm more okay with it because it's more of what we would really want out of an attraction. Even thinking about it as a new attraction, this is the kind of information that we would want to see from an original concept standpoint. And the fact that Disney's still doing stuff like this, I mean, granted, it's the Jungle Cruise, and the Jungle Cruise is incredibly popular. It means that that's still there, and people should be excited for that, for even just that reason.
Yeah.
So next thing we've got on here is that Disney's Mobile Magic has kind of launched as of Sunday, I believe was the first day that they started using it. Park entry seems to be seamless, but as you would expect for other parts of it, it's relatively clunky.
This is insane to me. Cannot believe that Disney released an app and it does not work flawlessly.
Oh my gosh, right?
I figured that the park pass part was going to be the easy part because, like Al and I were saying the last time that we all got together, having it be tied to the Apple Wallet means that it's not tied to a Disney point, and that's probably the best thing for it. On that, I didn't put this in here. They were also testing. They were testing the face scanners at the parks last week, which was interesting. They had at the touch points basically an iPad that stood in front of you, and as you would scan your band, it would scan your face. I didn't get to use it to the point that I feel confident saying anything about it, but I'm wondering if that's going to be a replacement for the fingerprint scanners or if we're just going to be past that altogether.
Maybe.
That doesn't seem like a viable replacement. I feel like that technology is gonna be much more flawed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other weird thing about it too is that to go through, you have to take your sunglasses and your hat off. They have the signs for that, but you leave your mask on, obviously, because that's not what they would want to do.
Sense.
Right. That's what I said. So in all reality, isn't it? Because I have trouble unlocking my iPhone with my face recognition thing. I can't imagine how a Disney scanner is going to recognize me with a mask on. But I guess because it's taking your picture with the mask on, I don't know. There's a lot of questions that I have about that one.
Now, okay, I'm gonna say that I'm not trying to brag, but I did get a new phone, and
Ooh.
it's a Note or not Note 21, it's a Galaxy S21 Ultra, and it has the like retinal scan thing to unlock the phone. Well, usually when I get a new phone, like I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm like, oh, as long as it's got like a fingerprint unlock thing to open it, that's cool. But honestly, a lot of the times, by the time I turn my phone on and go to push the thumbprint button to unlock it, the retinal scanner has already opened my phone for me. So
Oh yeah.
I think that the technology could be there for Disney to use this.
It's very
problem
James
that-
Bond.
Well,
A
see, the
retinal
problem.
scanner.
I think it would be great if it was just a retinal scanner, but they're marketing it as a face recognition thing, which like that's where it kind of is a problem. I think. I don't know. I'm interested to see what happens because in a post-COVID world, I really don't want to be touching those fingerprint scanners.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It wasn't that great touching them before, but especially not now and afterwards.
Well,
Again, one of those things we can be glad if they keep.
I was thinking about this too when we were coming home. Like going through entry at the theme parks felt so much faster because you weren't having to stop and wait for the fingerprint scanner. It was tap your magic band and go. And that's
Mhm.
I feel like the face scanners are going to just slow that down a little bit. Granted, I probably see why they're doing it because they can't really do the touch points anymore, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, last one we have on here is that Disney World's extending theme park hours in mid-April. April 7th, Magic Kingdom. Most of these are already extended at this point through these times. But it looks like they're keeping the hours that they were running previously, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Epcot's going to be 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Hollywood Studio, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then Animal Kingdom, 8 p.m. to 8 p.m.
24 hours.
Sorry, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. My bad. Could you imagine 24-hour Animal Kingdom? That would be something.
Wild, but
Horrible.
Oh man.
I'm happy that these hours are sticking around though. They work like incredibly well.
yeah. I mean, as somebody who much prefers to be at the parks, like get there later and stay later, this is great. I approve.
Yeah. They worked out well for us. I think I talked about it before. We weren't going to buy park hoppers, but we upgraded our tickets when we got down there because Epcot was open till 11 p.m. like every night, and it just made sense because if you weren't done the theme parks, you could just hop over to Epcot and do something over there.
Yeah.
But so that's the news. We have a housekeeping topic if Brian wants to discuss that.
I would. I actually realized that not only do we have this one announcement to make, that on air we have not discussed the winners of our t-shirt contest, which is tying directly into this next piece of housekeeping. But yeah, last month, if you guys remember, we put on a t-shirt design contest where people in our Discord especially, but really it was open to any of our listeners to submit designs for us to create t-shirts, put in a store to sell. And our two winners were Hannah and Anna, and we got 3 awesome designs that are now available in our brand new Station 71 Redbubble store. So if you go to redbubble.com and search in Station 71 at the top, we have a wide variety of products that you can buy. Not only t-shirts, there are t-shirts, sweatshirts, skirts, pillows. I think we even have some shower curtains in there. There's a clock. You can buy a clock with with one of the designs on it. But anyways, if you're interested, go there and check it out. Hannah and Anna did an awesome job on the designs they came up with. They're extremely unique. I don't want to give a lot of them away because I think the surprise is good enough to go in there and look if you haven't seen them yet. So go check that out, even if just to see the designs. But if you want to help us out and buy some merch, it's there for you, and we'd appreciate it.
Definitely.
I didn't know that you made 1 o'clock, and I'm.
It was so funny. Like, I do not understand this, like, how Redbubble came up with this stuff. Because, like, we were talking about in the Discord, like, they don't have hats, but you can get a clock or a shower curtain with the logo on it. So there's all kinds of stuff.
And if you get something, please take a picture and send it to us. We want to see all of this stuff in action.
Especially if it's a shower curtain.
Especially a shower curtain.
Can also buy aprons and water bottles. The fact that they don't have a hat is strange.
Yes, it's very strange. But yeah.
And also, just thank you to everyone that submitted designs. It was really fun to look through everyone's designs, and we had some really good ones, even aside from our winners. So thank you to everyone that participated.
Definitely. Everybody did a fantastic job.
I also want to point out that there is a mini skirt on here for one of the designs.
There is, I believe there's a mini skirt for multiple designs.
Why?
Why not?
It was available, and I was like, you know what? It is not my job to tell the consumer what they want to purchase. So any of the logos that fit on any of the other merchandise, I put it in there. So I think we've got like a combination of somewhere in the neighborhood of like 200 items that you could buy with the logos, like with the different combinations. So yeah, it's up to you guys. Whatever you want to buy, it's in there, except for hats.
Oh boy. Well, that said, I guess that brings us to our news, or our topic this week, not our news topic. Yeah, so we're going to be doing like a trip report and a COVID planning guide, in which we'll talk about like a couple different things to prep for if you're going to be going down to Disney. I guess I should start then, right?
I mean, you're the one that got married and went to Disney for their honeymoon.
That's true.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How was it?
It was fun. I mean, the trip was great. It's definitely different to be in Disney in a like COVID world. I know you've talked about that before, but I think one of the things that I want to start off by saying is that I know we've mentioned wait times being lower and things like that, and it being like a good time to go, specifically if you're trying to do certain things. But I also think that if this was my first experience with Disney, it would be incredibly it wouldn't be great, I think, is the best way to say that.
Your first experience might also be your last experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because right now wait times are low. I mean, the longest we waited for anything was probably about posted an hour, but it wasn't even that. But outside of that, like not having the fireworks and the parades and stuff like that, it feels different. And I will say they do a nice job. The character cavalcades are great. They feel just like I would want them to. And honestly, I kind of hope that they keep them around because it was a cool surprise to walk into Magic Kingdom and turn around and see Eeyore and Piglet on the train station waving down to everybody. And stuff like that is neat. And I think that it would be in Disney's best interest to keep that around, but also I miss the fireworks and stuff like that and the shows and all the little things that they can't do right now. So keep that in mind because I do have a lot of positive things to say about Disney in the parks right now, but I think that's also coming from the perspective of somebody that's been there enough to feel like it matters that I've done those things already.
Yeah, you know what the norm is like.
Yeah, and I will say the other thing to keep in mind too, one of the things that we found was a lot of the wait times were posted for certain times and they weren't actually like the times that they were posted for. Like I think we waited in line for Slinky Dog Dash and it said it was about an hour and we were in line maybe about 45 minutes, if that. So they are significantly shorter than what's posted. I did find that the Touring Plans Lines app was more accurate than Disney, which I mean,
That's pretty much par for the course.
yes, I was going to say that's pretty par for the course there. But there were also things that we did like that we wouldn't have been able to do during normal time too. Like we did Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway twice and walked on both times.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was mostly because they were posted at like a 45-minute wait and 45 minutes was walking through the queue that they had set up. But also, I know you've mentioned before too that things like the Haunted Mansion don't feel as good because the stretching room isn't there. And not having that be your first experience is kind of rough.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I mean, I know we've done trip reports before, and I don't want to go day by day because I feel like we'd be here, all night. But quick highlights, the Poly, we stayed at the Poly. It was great. We ordered Captain Cook's and Kona Cafe more times than I can remember. And he's just waving me off now because we definitely did. She said I had to have my Tonga toast, which is absolutely true.
Oh my gosh. You got to.
Having that and having the ability to get Dole Whips whenever I wanted was fantastic.
Did you get any Ohana bread pudding?
So Ohana was closed, and
but I think they were serving. Last time I heard, they were serving the bread pudding at Kona Cafe. Am I wrong?
You can get it at Kona. The problem is you have to have a reservation for Kona. You can't get Kona to go and get the Ohana bread pudding because it's not on the menu, which is very strange.
Gotcha.
And because of that, Kona Cafe had like 0 reservations the entire time that we were there. So most of the time it was like we would get back from the park or we would get up in the morning and we would mobile order, eat it in the room and then go over. The other great thing about our room was where we were located. Our room was the last building before the Ticket and Transportation Center. So one, we had a great view outside towards the Magic Kingdom. We could see the castle from our balcony. And then we were like a 2-second walk to the TTC to get on a monorail or a boat to Magic Kingdom. The only thing that stinks is the Epcot monorail is down. So we couldn't do that. But even then, the buses are right there too. So we had like the perfect walking distance for from our room to the TTC.
Nice.
Yeah, and we
awesome.
rode the ferry boat to Magic Kingdom like every time we went over there. I think we did the monorail maybe once, right? Yeah, we did the monorail once. And that was purely because the monorail just happened to be there and the boat wasn't. So, other like quick things that we did that I want to definitely mention. I mean, Magic Kingdom, we did pretty much everything. That's all fairly standard. The big things, I guess, Galaxy's Edge is new for me. Obviously, we haven't talked about that. I was in heaven in Galaxy's Edge. It was like the coolest experience ever. So
tell us about Savi's.
Well, I'm going to get there because that was the end of our day. So actually, the longest we waited was probably for Smuggler's Run, which I had a blast being the engineer. I don't know what you guys are talking about. We both ended up as engineers. And I mean, our pilot wasn't great because she was like 5 years old, but it was still a blast. It was fun. And I think that ride is definitely super, super enjoyable. And I would be happy if they did more stuff like that. Definitely something I want to reride just to get the different roles and see how they would, change my perspective. But being engineer was still incredible.
That's interesting that they are putting mixed parties together now.
So how they were doing it. Yeah. So how they did it was, it wasn't like the whole thing was filled. You could be pilot and engineer and Gunner was on autopilot. So there was still that space between everybody. And I feel like if we probably had a party of 3, it would have just been our group. But because it was 2 and 2, they let us sit together.
Gotcha.
Which was fine. I mean, It was cool, and I also think the experience of watching like a little girl pilot the Millennium Falcon was fun too, because her mom was having a blast more than she was. She looked like she was struggling to reach the little lever. Yeah, it was something. So yeah, Andy said her hand couldn't reach the button, and she kept like reaching for it because the lever thing that you have in the middle that really steers it, she was just too short for it. But it was fun.
Aww.
And the other weird thing about it, though, like the one thing that I will say, getting back to the whole like, if this was my first Disney experience, I probably would feel a little weird about it. The line for Smuggler's Run actually wraps backstage, which is interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it went basically through Galaxy's Edge, and then you got to the point like right in front of the Falcon, and it went behind a wall backstage that they had a bunch of planners in like a box, and then it weaved through like a little mini queue that they had built, and then it came back out and went inside. So yeah, and what was really jarring was coming from Galaxy's Edge, seeing the backside of those like the rocks and everything there that aren't really rocks on the other side. They're just like scaffolding holding them up. So it was a little strange.
I hate that.
Yeah, like you think it's bad from the road, but then you see it like right there, and it's even worse. So that was
it just takes you out of it a little bit there.
You know, I really feel like they could have, like, they didn't have to do as much detail as they did on the front, but I feel like they could have done something.
Right.
Well, we've said that about Pandora too. Like you drive down that road next to it, and it's just all like. And the weird thing is, even the buses pass by that too. So it's like it's not just the guests that are driving in. But it was interesting. And like I said, that's a very nitpicky complaint, because obviously you shouldn't be doing Disney for your first time now. It's not really the way to do it. But
and in a post-COVID world, I think we can hopefully assume that they won't have to have as many makeshift queues as they've had because of social distancing.
Yeah, and I will say that, like, bringing up the point of social distancing and how long the queues were, I really felt like while we were there, a lot of the people that were there were respecting the social distancing. There was one or two incidents where like we would have somebody that would be way too close to us. We had a couple behind us on Slinky Dog that was on their phones to the point that they weren't paying attention to where the lines were, and they were like right up our butts. But other than that, everybody was fine. Everybody waited, you know, in their spaces. They stood on their little circles that they had to for the different rides, and they were fine. But after that, we didn't get our virtual queue for Rise in the morning. We got one at 1:00, which just so happened to be around the time that we found out that you can also do a walk-up reservation at Savi's. I've talked about Savi's on here a couple times and how that was like my one big thing that I wanted to do. And I couldn't get a reservation for the day that we were in Hollywood Studios. It just was not happening. But around 11 o'clock that day, we walked up and I was like, hey, you know, this is the one thing I really wanted to do. I know that this is probably like gonna be a no, so you can tell me no. Feel free to tell me no. But is there any space that you have? And the lady that was there was like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, well, what we'll do is we'll throw your name on a list, and if something opens up, we'll text you. So I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. She sends me this link. It puts you in a queue, and it actually shows you your place in the queue with how many people are in front of you. When I went up at 11, I was like 18th in line. So I will say, if it is something you want to do and it's not something you can feasibly get a reservation for, that's probably where you want to go first. Just because it's, you know, going to be a wait. It was definitely a wait for me. We got called back around 7 o'clock, and they said, hey, you know, we have one space open, so if you want to get in, you can. You'll have to be back at like 7:45. Now, Hollywood Studios closed at 8 o'clock that night, and we also had a Rise virtual queue that was getting called at 8 o'clock. The one thing that we did find out was that if you have a reservation at Savi's, apparently it also works at Ogus too, and you get called for those reservations at the same time that you get called for your virtual queue. If you tell the people in line at the virtual queue that you had a reservation and you were at one of those things, they'll let you in even after your boarding group was called. I think we were boarding group like 114, and we got called right as we had to go back for the Savi's reservation. So when we came back, they were boarding like the last group for the day, and I walked up and I was like, hey, we do have this from earlier. We were at Savi's, and they were like, yeah, just go right ahead. So little tip, if you do have a boarding group, you're not going to miss it just because it gets called at the same time as a reservation that you had for something else.
That's good.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah. You can have it all.
Yeah. Well, that was the one thing that really stunk was like when we got the text message to go to Savi's, I was like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go see what we can do? We're probably going to miss this boarding group. And that was the other thing. Like, those were the two things I really wanted to do in Galaxy's Edge. And if I had to pick one, it was like I wasn't going to have an easy time making that decision. So we went up and I told the lady, I was like, I have this boarding group. And she said, yeah, that's fine. Just tell them you were here and we'll let you in. But overall, the Savi's experience was awesome. Probably the coolest thing that I've done in Disney in a long time as far as like park experiences go. They're social distancing really well, and it doesn't feel like you're missing any of the experience just because like they have to cut it back or anything. When you get there, they give you like the menu of lightsaber parts that you get to pick from. You have to scan like a QR code and it comes up on your phone and it gives you the 4 different types of sabers you can build. Each one has like 2 different interchangeable parts that you can swap out for however many combinations you want. So you pick the one that you want, you pay for it before you go in. They give you a little pass and a pin that you get to keep. So you actually get a pin trading pin as well as the lightsaber. Yes. The big
now I'm
$200.
interested.
Well, it's cool because you get ones that's specific for what you're building. So there's 4 different kinds of lightsabers. Let me see if I can pull them up. Options. There's the power and control, peace and justice, protection and defense, and then the elemental nature are the 4 options. And each one looks different, obviously, like very different. I went with the elemental nature, just because the design on it was really cool. I just sent the list of them to the chat if you guys haven't looked at them before. But I went with the elemental nature, and I kind of had an idea on what I wanted to build just based off of it. Like I kind of knew what I wanted. So we went in, and when you walk into the room, they're distancing parties by like 1 space, which is why the capacity is significantly more limited. So like we were in one spot and then there was a blank space next to us and then there's someone next to us. And then the other cool thing, if you have someone with you, you're allowed 1 additional person in there. So just because I was building a lightsaber didn't mean that Andy had to wait outside. She could come in and, watch.
That's good.
So
she didn't have to wonder what you're doing in there.
Yeah. She's sitting behind me saying that she got to watch, record, and take pictures the entire time. But the way that they had it set up was you would stand in one space and then the person behind you had an actual dot on the floor like they had in most of the queues. Oh yeah, apparently she stepped out of her dot for a second and they looked at her weird.
Oh no.
So how it ends up working is they I don't know, are we doing full spoilers here on the Savi's experience, or am I leaving some of it to the imagination?
If you're listening and you don't want to be spoiled, fast forward a couple of minutes, because
okay,
I don't plan on doing this anytime soon, and I want to hear about it.
Me too.
So how it works is honestly, one of the most fascinating things about it is that it's story based, which we've talked about that with how Galaxy's Edge is, supposed to be like a living world kind of thing. The story is that you're going to Savi's workshop where these scrappers they've gathered pieces of lightsabers and they're allowing you to build a lightsaber so you can become a Jedi and help them fight off the First Order, which they really go through and sell that story the entire time. How they end up doing is they shut the doors and everything. They act like, you're in this secret thing where you're going to be building from the pieces of scrap. And after they go through the whole story with you, they bring out your pieces on a tray. I'm pulling up pictures online as I'm doing this just so I can show you guys what it looks like. So the trays are actually under the counter in there. So I'm sure they have like multiples of each one. They'll pull out the tray, they'll stick it in front of you. And then in front of the tray, there's like this little thing that you can kind of put your lightsaber on as you're building it. Here's another photo that's got like the whole setup.
Anybody listening, you just have to imagine this part.
Yeah, probably. But the basic saber part is that it's like a plasticky metal piece that has like a hollowed out middle. And they'll come around after they've, given you all your pieces, and then they talk about the kyber crystals. And they give like explanations of like the Jedis that have had each crystal. So the guy will hold up like the color of the crystal, and then the cool thing is the room will actually change colors to be the color of the crystal that he's holding up, which was like, it was one of those like really dumb but cool things. And you have the choice inside to pick from blue, green, purple, or red. So you get to select with like the stereotypical Star Wars saber colors. And then from there, they'll have another person come over and help you actually assemble your lightsaber. So it's kind of like playing with big kid Legos, because all of the pieces just kind of snap together. The first thing that you'll do is you'll put your crystal in on the saber, and as soon as you put it in, it makes a noise, which was like the coolest thing. Just because, you're in that experience, you hear the sound, you're like, oh, okay, this is really happening.
Okay, but what color did you pick, Mario? Tell everyone.
I went with blue. I was going to go purple. I was between purple and blue. I ended up buying the purple crystal later because, I wanted it. But the one that's in my lightsaber now is actually yellow. So originally I went with blue.
And why is that?
Well, so
just coolest color.
It was the color that I so realistically
you felt
what ended
drawn
up happening
to.
Yeah, basically. But what ended up happening was I was torn between blue and purple. I was like, I don't know which one I want to pick. And they pull out, like, when they give you the crystals that you get to build your lightsaber with, they pull out this tube that's got them all sitting in it. And it's like you can see them lit up in the tube. And on the side that I could see, there was blue, green, purple, blue, green. So I was like, okay, there's only one purple. I'm probably going to grab the purple. I saw someone grab the purple. I got like relatively upset that they grabbed the purple. And they came around and there was two other purples on the other side. I was like, at this point, I've just accepted I wanted blue. So I grabbed the blue one. It was one of those like in the moment decisions that I was like, this is fine. But it looks really cool. And I will say the colors that you can make the saber are like really nice. It's not just like it's not like a toy lightsaber, as weird as that sounds. They're really like really vibrant and really bright. But after you get to put the crystal in, you put the emitter switch parts on, which there's 4 of those that you can select. There's one for the one side and then one for the other, or 2 for the one side and 2 for the other side. So you can only really pick, 2 of them, but there's a couple different combinations you can do. Then you pick the other pieces that go on, and they all just kind of snap into place and then screw in from there. The part that has the switch actually has 2 little color panels that snap into place with it. So like you'll pick the one on the one side and it has to go with the red tab, and then the other one has to go with the blue tab. And then the other pieces all kind of just screw in from there. Once everybody's assembled their lightsaber and it's all ready to go, they'll have you put it on this little like rack thing in front of your tray. Then they come around and they collect the other pieces that you didn't put on the lightsaber. So the pieces that you don't pick, you don't actually get to take home with you, which is kind of, for the price, I feel like you probably should.
Yeah.
But at the same
those
time,
scrappers gotta, make their money.
Yeah. Here's actually the pieces of the one that I built. I didn't take this picture, but I found this while I was looking at the photos. I didn't go with the giant tooth. Um,
Oh man.
unfortunately, there was a kid that picked that was across from us, and as soon as he put it on, I was like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't go with that one.
Maybe his like dad's a dentist or something.
It looked cool, but definitely not for me. But then from there, you put your lightsaber on like this little rack that's in front of you, and you have to wait until everybody's assembled theirs. They collect the scrap pieces, and the like lead scrapper guy will talk you through like the rest of the story. And he's like, basically the story is that you can't touch your lightsaber yet because it's not stable, and what they have to do is they have to come around and put them on in like these containment chamber things. So right next to the build station, there's actually like this big tube that's right next to you, which has the lightsaber blade in it. And what they'll do is they come around, they take the blade that you've built, and they snap it into the saber blade part that's in there, and it kind of just sits on the end of the counter in the blade that's in this tube, which it's really hard to explain how this thing is because it's just kind of like part of the counter. So they go around and do that. There. I'm really looking for a picture of this now, but I can't find one. You really do kind of have to see it because it's weird. It's like on the counter, there's this bump that covers over it, over like the actual like part. So the handle kind of just sits outside of the counter. But then when they go around, they put it in there. Once everybody's in there, they like dim the lights and they tell everybody to turn on their lightsabers. So your switch is actually in, like it's facing up, and when you turn it on, the whole tube lights up with the color that your crystal is. So everybody's lightsaber lights up, and then the tube opens, and they have like everybody lift their lightsabers up. And it was really cool because like it's kind of the stereotypical picture that you see with like all of the Savi stuff like this one. But it was a really like cool experience to just be in like this very dimly lit room with a bunch of people with lightsabers in the air. You can actually kind of see the little like tube things on the tables in this one. But,
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it was neat. And then the one thing I'm really happy about with this was that we did it at the end of the night, because I feel like if I had to carry the lightsaber around all day, it would have been rough.
Yeah, I bet.
So you do get a sleeve to go with it, so that you don't have to just carry around like a $200 lightsaber through the park. And the tube does have padding in it, and it's got like a shoulder strap. But if I had to carry that around Hollywood Studios all day, it would not be a fun time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably like the coolest experience that I had in a Disney park. Do you guys have any questions about it or anything that you want me to answer before I move on?
You had me at grown-up Legos.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the best way to explain it. And like the experience of actually doing it, like the fact that it's an interactive experience and you get to it's not just like, oh, you're going in and building this lightsaber. The fact that they make it like a story, or there's something else that goes with it, sells it even more. It's kind of like if you guys have done the Ollivander's wand experience thing in Universal, that's totally optional when you buy the wands. Mm-hmm. It's like that, but like times 10, at least for me.
And everyone that gets to participate, not just the one child that they pick in the audience.
Yes, exactly.
Hated that part. I wanted to be picked. I mean, I liked it for the kid, but I wanted it to be me.
And that's the part that I think is like what really sells it, is that it's not just one person. It's everybody.
Yeah.
But then the other cool thing about it too, you can also, like I kind of said before, you can change the colors of the lightsaber out. It's relatively easy to do. You just have to kind of disassemble the whole lightsaber to pop the crystal out and then put a new one in, which you can buy at pretty much most places in Disney at this point. You can buy them in Downtown Disney. You can buy them in Doc Onders, and then the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge store in Hollywood Studios too. So those are like $15 if you want extra colors, which I bought 3 of them. I have purple, white, yellow, and then the blue that came with it.
Now, how bad did you want to get the secret black one, though?
That's the whole reason I didn't buy a red one. So apparently the red or the black crystals that you can get from the red ones, while they're like rare and they do different things in like the holocrons, they're still just red and they make different noises, which I also found out all of the other crystals make different noises too. So like the yellow and the blue make different noises and the purple one makes a different noise. So it does kind of like, it's not only just the color that you're getting out of it, the actual like sounds that the saber makes is different too.
That's cool. Neat. Yeah. So wait, if you get the black one, it's still red?
So the black one is red in the lightsaber. It makes, the easiest way to explain the sounds it makes is apparently it's closer to like Kylo Ren's, where it's like that unstable sound, where the red one is more like just a regular lightsaber noise. That's the only like big difference with it.
I gotta say, that makes it a lot less desirable.
Yeah, that's
in my opinion.
So I stopped myself from buying the green and the red one specifically because I have a really bad habit of being like a completionist with things like that. So if I bought green and red, I would have to buy more of the red ones just to find a black one, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, because it's like a 1 in 100 thing or something, right?
Yeah, it's not great at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was my Savi's experience.
Well, cool. That sounds awesome. And I actually, even not being like a huge Star Wars fan, still want to do it.
Yeah.
I will say the other cool thing about it too, one of the things I was really worried about is like the build quality of it. Just from looking at them, they kind of look like plasticky pieces. They're like solid metal pieces, and it's got some weight to it. So while you're spending money for the experience and the lightsaber to take home, the actual saber itself is like really good quality. And if you do kind of want to get a little bit of like a feel for it beforehand, if you go to Doc Onders, or I think the places in Disney Springs we found out we're doing them too, they have the legacy lightsabers, and you can actually go in and hold them. They let you hold up to 3 of them, mostly because of COVID. But you can get a feel for like the quality of the actual lightsaber that they sell, which was really neat.
Cool.
I will say we did hold them, and she told us that Kylo Ren and Ben Solo's lightsabers, because they have 2 different ones, were the heaviest, and they most definitely were. There was a lot of edge in that lightsaber. But other than that, new stuff that we did too. Right after that, we did Rise, and Rise is a phenomenal ride. I know we've kind of said no spoilers on that because Brian hasn't done it yet, right?
Right.
I will tell you, if you go now, you still get the whole experience from it. Have you done it since COVID started, Beth?
Yes, I did it. So I've done it twice. Once was before COVID and once was after COVID. So I've gotten both experiences.
Well, so weren't they for a while not running like mild spoilers, but the train part of it where you're in the transport vehicle?
I think they were. It was just like, I think they have been doing that consistently. It's just like they have gone through different stages of it where it's like at first they were only allowing a certain number of people on each one, and then they were doing, now they have like dots and social distancing, plexiglass and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there may have been a point where they weren't doing it at all. I don't recall.
Yeah. I will say the coolest thing about that ride, and it is definitely like a half-hour ride if you count everything that's in there, is the fact that the ride starts. We've talked about Tower of Terror and Haunted Mansion, like the actual story starts before you go into the ride. This is like that to the 1000th percent. Like,
nice,
incredible,
fully immersive experience.
Yeah, and even that doesn't begin to cover the experience of this ride. I was like blown away by how impressive this one was. We also did, like I said, Runaway Railway. We did that a couple times too. I really enjoyed that ride. I know you've kind of said it's not, super, super incredible, but
I think it's cute. I feel like it's unfortunate that it came out around the same time as Rise.
It also has a very large problem that we kind of discovered on our first ride through. So we rode on our first one, we got the back of the car, and then the second time we rode it, we got the front of the train. We're not doing like major spoilers for this, right? Because you haven't done this one either, have you, Brian?
Nope.
Okay. I won't give away major spoilers, but obviously it's a trackless ride, right?
Right.
Okay. So
if he didn't before, he does now.
So the only thing that I will say, and I feel like this is pretty obvious just from like the stuff we talked about, is it's a trackless ride, and it starts out as a train and then separates into its trackless vehicles. So the way that they've marketed it is the ride vehicles change their place in the train as when it reassembles. The back of the vehicle is the absolute worst car. And it's so bad to the point that you miss like the first half of the ride and kind of just see the end of it. It's strange because I'm trying to do this without it like as spoiler free as possible. But the train comes up to a scene in the beginning, and the scene happens, and you hear the scene happen, but you don't see the scene until like you're passing it and everything's already happened from the last
like vehicle. A major oversight.
It's the weirdest thing, and I noticed it the first time. I still had a blast with it. It was great. And then I'm going to say this, and I feel like this isn't spoilery, but Beth, you know the transformation part of that ride, right? In the last scene.
Mm-hmm.
You actually are the front car in that scene and miss almost all of that unless you're looking out of the side of the vehicle from the last car.
Wow.
So the last car is probably the worst one to be on, but we rode it a second time from the front car, and it was a blast. I think it's a really cute ride. It's a really good ride, and I really like the trackless technology in both that and Rise. I think, like you said, it is kind of unfortunate that they came out close enough because
they get compared.
They do, and
one
I don't think
is very obviously superior.
Well, and not even just that. Like, I think they catered to like different audiences too.
That's very true. Yes.
Yeah, and from the audience that like Runaway Railway caters towards, I feel like that is a very good ride for that audience, and I very much enjoyed that ride. Like, I'm happy we did it twice. That's how good it was.
The other thing I'll say right now with COVID going on is that my first pandemic trip, they didn't have any of the plexiglass barriers up on the actual ride vehicles for either Rise or Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. And then when I went back, they had put up all the plexiglass. So I feel like that's another detractor if you get stuck behind the plexiglass because there's reflection in front of your face the whole time. And I found that to be very distracting.
I didn't notice that as much, but I can see that.
But obviously, when things get more back to normal, the plexiglass will hopefully go away pretty quickly, and then that will not be an issue any longer.
The other interesting thing, too, is that they're not doing the pre-show for it, which feels like that's also part of the ride.
Right, and I haven't gotten to experience the pre-show.
Yeah, I really wish that, like, I could experience that, but I understand why. Like, I totally get it. And I feel like that adds probably to the experience, too. We also found out from the cast member at One Man's Dream that apparently they're one of the only rides that has their COVID spiel recorded because they move so many people through them. They got it recorded apparently by the person that does the park announcements.
Wow.
So, that was a fun little tidbit because we ended up doing One Man's Dream too while we were waiting around in Hollywood Studios, and we had a nice little conversation with the cast member that was there because he was doing the announcement fairly often, and we were commending him for how well he was doing it. And he was like, "Yeah, I wish we had it like the one at Runaway Railway where it's recorded and they just push a button." He's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I bet that gets old.
Well, other than that, the only other things that I really want to touch on.
Wait,
Epcot.
Brian, I believe asked how was One Man's Dream.
Oh, I thought
Yeah.
I missed all of that. I love One Man's Dream.
I mean,
I,
just
like-
what state is it in right now? I'm all like, I haven't been in close to a year, and I feel like I always need to check in on it.
I mean, so for the most part, a lot of the stuff that hasn't changed in a while hasn't changed. They still have the Galaxy's Edge model in there. They have a couple of like models from Galaxy's Edge in there. Like they had I think it was an AT-AT was in one of the displays. They're running One Man's Dream, not Walt Disney Presents, like the preview stuff. So that was nice to get to sit down and watch. Other than that, I mean, I feel like they've slimmed it down a lot in the last like couple of years, but it's still always a fun little walkthrough to do. We haven't done it in a while, so it was nice to go through and see all that again.
Good.
But other than that, like quick highlight stuff, we spent very little time in Animal Kingdom just because not having as many rides as the other parks, it almost felt like, and I hate to say this, it was very close to not being worth going to. Just because, well, so the problem is, and this is the big issue that I think Animal Kingdom has right now, is that because there's not as many rides, a lot of people are waiting around at the exhibits, and the lines that they do have for rides are also incredibly long. So in the world of COVID, my Disney experience kind of ended up being more about rides than it would be about shows and things like that. And not having things like Festival of the Lion King or even, Up a Great Bird Adventure, it's weird as that sounds. It felt like there was a lot of people with very little to do. And that caused a very strange experience in that park. Plus, it was also, I always feel like Animal Kingdom is the hottest park, and it was very hot last week. So that didn't help.
But it has the most shade.
Yeah, I guess. We
now,
did walk
so
on
there was
Everest.
no bird show?
I don't know if there was or wasn't, because it looked like it was closed off, but there were times still up, so it very well could be running.
Because when I went, it was not Up a Great Bird Adventure or whatever. It was Feathered Friends in Flight or something, like some interim show. Which it was still cute. I couldn't tell if it seemed like it was really like shoddily put together and it was kind of charming because of that, or if it was supposed to seem like that and that was like the shtick of it.
Yeah.
But it was good either way. I just didn't know if it was still running.
Yeah, it looked like there were times for it, but we didn't really stop. We went into Animal Kingdom. We did Everest. We did Flight of Passage. We did Dinosaur. And that may have been it, because we weren't there very long.
What's Chester and Hester's looking like now that there's pretty much nothing going on inside of it?
It was still, I mean, Triceratops Spin is still running, but
thank God for that.
yeah, I can't get rid of that. Ooh, another spinner ride.
I don't know. It always looked rough, but that's just me. I don't like Chester and Hester's. I will say the other cool thing about Animal Kingdom though is that the cavalcades were boats on the water, which was neat to see. I don't know if we've talked about that. Like the characters will just pass by, and at one point we were headed into Pandora, and Rafiki just rode by on a boat, which was like the coolest thing in the world.
Nice.
But as far as other stuff, Epcot is in a really weird state right now.
It's the construction walls park.
If you want to talk about like parks that have very little like immersion, Epcot is like it. I think we did almost everything in Epcot. Did we miss anything in Epcot? No, I think we did everything in Epcot besides Three Caballeros, because that was a weird line, and we weren't getting in line for that. But we walked on to Frozen Ever After, basically. It was posted at like a 35-minute wait, but that felt less than that. The longest we waited was Test Track, which was posted at 60 minutes, but that was even shorter. But getting around that park was really something. And it feels like you kind of have to, like, before you could walk from one side to the other pretty freely. At this point, you have to do everything on one side and then move to the other side if you want, anything over there.
Yeah. Once you get into World Showcase, it's fine. But Future World is a trek.
And the other thing that's really unfortunate about that, though, is that because Future World is such a wreck, it felt like World Showcase was significantly more crowded, which I could be wrong about, but it felt like there were a lot of people there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So on the topic of Future World too, and you want to talk about immersion breaking, the line for Frozen wrapped through China, through China. But it was still only a 35-minute wait. It was just because of how the queue was set up. Like, they weren't using half of the inside queue. It was just the outside queue, and then they spaced everybody apart. So like that middle garden section of China was the queue for Frozen, which was strange.
What'd you eat?
In Epcot, we did a couple of the flower and garden booths. I don't think there was anything
stand out.
I did a popsicle trio at one of the booths that was pretty good.
Okay.
Other than that was pretty much there wasn't really anything super exciting. We did do Tutto Italia, which was new for us. I thought their food was really good. They are very pricey. That was probably the most expensive meal that we ate all trip.
What did Andy think?
What did you think of Tutto Italia? That was the place you had the gnocchi at.
Yeah, both Italian restaurants.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did have gnocchi, both Italian restaurants.
You ate at 2 Italian restaurants?
What was that? No. So we ate at Tutto Italia, and then we also ate at, that was the really expensive one.
I gotta say, the fact that you remember it being really expensive, but nothing stands out about the food is not a great recommendation.
Yeah. I mean, it was okay. So it's weird because you have Via Napoli right there.
Was it like Olive Garden?
Bread was good, and the gnocchi was good, but I don't know. It was almost like we weren't dressed nice enough.
Yeah, that's true. It was one of those restaurants where, did you hear all of that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was one of those restaurants where like you feel like you kind of had to be dressed up to be there because, well, it was kind of fancy. The food was really good. Yeah, they brought us cheese, and that was really good too because cheese is always good.
That's true. It's hard to go wrong with cheese.
Yeah, it is hard to go wrong with cheese, but I don't know. The inside was just really nice. It was really fancy. I feel like so. When we left through Tutto Gusto, which is the wine cellar.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I would probably have had a better time eating there because it was a dressed down version, and I don't know, it just looked like they had basically the same food.
Gotcha.
Other than that, I mean, we didn't really eat in Epcot besides that because we had lunch there. The other thing that we did, and I guess this kind of ties into the whole planning aspect of this, I forgot to make dining reservations like the entire trip because we were so focused on wedding planning and everything that when we got there, we realized we had nowhere to eat for dinner the first day. So, I will say on top of that, mobile ordering at places is incredibly nice. Like having the option to just mobile order and then pick up your food. We found that mobile ordering and then telling them about 15 minutes ahead of time that we were at the restaurant, even though we weren't, worked out better for us. Just because how Disney wants you to do it is they want you to order, walk over to the restaurant, say I'm here, and then wait outside until they call you. You're not allowed to sit in any of the restaurants until your order is called up. And even then, when it's called up, you have to go up to the counter like you would for a normal quick service, and then go sit down or find some place to sit. So, like, for example, the one day that we did Animal Kingdom, we ate at Pongo Pongo? No.
Satuli Canteen.
Satuli, yeah, thank you. I can never remember their names. We ate at Satuli, and we got off of Flight of Passage, walked over, or as we were getting out of the queue of Flight of Passage, put in our mobile order, said we were there, walked over to Pongo Pongo, got drinks from Pongo Pongo, and then walked over to Satuli, and our food was ready. So we got to walk in, grab our seat, and sit down.
Yeah.
The only thing that stinks about it, like I said, is just the time that it takes for them to get the food ready, which is great because it means that the food's fresh. But if you do it the way that Disney wants you to do it, it's like walk up, stand there for 20 minutes, wait for your food at a quick service restaurant, and then go sit down.
Right. And that's a good little bit of advice, because that's something I noticed too, is just tell them you're there a little bit before you actually get there, and you won't have to wait quite as long.
Yeah. When we were ordering breakfast, it was like I would order it from their room. As I was leaving, I would say I'm here, walk over, and it would be ready when I got there.
Yeah.
So it's just.
But be careful also, because if you do something like a Dole Whip, then it'll be like sitting there.
I made the dumb mistake of doing that with the blue milk in Galaxy's Edge, which was something.
Oh, I love it.
I liked it a lot. I got it with I think the blue milk comes with rum in it. Or
it doesn't come with rum. It's like $7 extra, but yes.
Yeah. Still, you can get it with rum in it, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was great. I've heard a lot of like negative things about that, but I really enjoyed it.
I think it's delicious. The green was, I could take it or leave it.
I mean, blue is fruit and green is citrus. Citrus milk does not sound good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it wasn't the best thing. I didn't think it was terrible, but it was a one and done for me for sure.
Yeah. I also see on here, I know I'm kind of jumping into the next topic, but I see on here that you have in your tips and tricks, bring multiple masks.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that happened to us that I have to bring up, and Andy, who's sitting right next to me, is probably going to kill me for saying this. We did Splash Mountain for the first time. She did Splash Mountain for the first time because it's always closed when you go. Ever.
Aww.
Wow.
So,
I'm glad that you got it in before it changes.
Mm-hmm.
She's telling me she hates me because she had an awful experience with it.
Oh,
no.
You either come off completely dry or completely soaked. There is no in between.
Well, I'm
guessing she was on the soaked side.
Our experience was on the soak side because they sat the two of us in the front and two little kids in the back. So when we went down the drop, it was weighted to the front. But
oh gosh.
With that said, obviously you're wearing a mask and
you get waterboarded.
Yeah, you basically waterboard yourself as you're going down the hill. So we got off. She's telling me she hates me because this was like her worst experience with the ride. But you basically waterboard yourself getting off of the ride. And then after that, we had to go buy masks because I didn't bring an extra one. And they were
no.
So that was our experience with Splash.
Yeah. I had an experience on one of my pandemic trips where I got in line for Big Thunder Mountain and it was not raining. And then I got on Big Thunder Mountain and it had started raining. So I was just getting smacked in the face with rain and completely soaked. And I got off and I was just like trying to breathe through my wet mask.
So basically Big Thunder in the rain is the equivalent of Splash Mountain.
Yeah, a little bit.
So that was pretty much our trip. Yeah,
nice.
It was fun, and I will say, like I said, I had negative things to say about a lot of the experience, like just in general, if this was like a first time trip. But as someone that's been plenty of times, like it was a good way to wrap up a lot of things that I hadn't done before.
Mm-hmm.
Or like hadn't done in a while, which was nice. Like we even did things like we rode Barnstormer and Dumbo on I think the first day we were there, just because they had like very minimal weights and it was just something that was there that we could do. So
yeah,
it's fun for that.
It's good to do those things you never do every once in a while.
Yeah. I will also say, wrapping it back around to Splash Mountain, I'm after having rode that for the first time in a while, I'm kind of like okay with them changing it over now. I realized how much that like attraction lives in my head just because of nostalgia, and not because it's necessarily a great ride.
Take it back.
So here's the thing. I realized that like the one thing that really bugs me about Splash Mountain is that there is a story going on there, but the volume of the music is so much louder than like the animatronics. So you basically are just riding by scenes that you can just faintly hear. And there's a lot of things that just don't feel like they've aged as well as they could have.
Well, I'm gonna have to hard disagree with you there. I love Splash Mountain, and don't get me wrong. Obviously, I'm very excited for the refurb because Tiana, obviously, but I still think Splash Mountain is a very fun attraction. I love the storyline, and even if you can't hear the storyline, that song is a bop.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the music is great, but it's just so, I don't know. It was interesting. It also had probably the longest consistent line the entire week I was down there, reaching like 75-minute wait times consistently and having the queue wrap through like most of Frontierland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was rough. And I also think that that's probably because it's closing soon and people are trying to get in those last rides.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Also, the experience of getting off of Splash Mountain being soaked was enough for me to be like, I'm not super thrilled about that.
Yeah, as much as I love Splash Mountain, that 10 seconds of drop, not even 10 seconds, 5 seconds of drop is really only like a small fraction of the attraction, and it's my least favorite part probably because I hate getting wet.
Yeah.
I just like riding through and looking at the scenes and like going through the story, and then the drop is just like a consequence of that.
Yeah.
But it was always a once in a while thing for me. Even though I love it, it's just not worth being soaked.
Yeah, and I don't know. I if they could do something where the drop wasn't as big, maybe I would, I would like it a little more and it would be a more frequent ride, but I feel like getting off and being soaked is just not fun.
Yeah. Very true.
But yeah, I mean I think that's pretty much like the quick hits of things I wanted to talk about.
Well, do we want to go over some tips and tricks to wrap it up?
We can definitely do that.
Cool. Well, yes, of course, as Mario mentioned, you want to bring multiple masks. I personally recommend, having your like go-to mask, your cloth or comfortable mask that you wear throughout the day. And then, stash an extra cloth one and a couple of disposable ones for those times like Splash Mountain, because it's very nice to be able to just take it off and toss it once it's wet instead of having to carry around a nice cloth mask that you want to keep.
Mm-hmm. And even if you don't want to ride any of the water rides, like the mask is liable to get pretty nasty from you sweating throughout the day. So it's nice to be able to swap them out.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
That was definitely one thing that we noticed was just it's being in the hot Florida weather. When you get that mask off, it was gross for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Plus, you never know what's going to happen if it flies off on a roller coaster or if it, one of the straps snaps. It's always good to have a spare.
Yeah.
But that being said, I also would recommend taking a mask for a test run, like a day that you're not at the parks, like before your trip. Just wear it around and see how it feels and make sure that it's going to be comfortable, on your face, it's breathable and not like rubbing on your ears weird or something like that, because you got to wear this thing all day long except when you're eating, drinking or at a relaxation station. So got to make sure it's comfy.
The age-old thing of don't wear new shoes at Disney, don't wear a new mask either.
Exactly. Break it in a little bit.
Yeah.
And also keep in mind that you have to wear them during photos. So if if that's your thing, you may want to consider matching your outfit with your mask or wearing a particularly cute one or something like that. But kind of like you guys were saying, you get kind of gross under there if you're sweating. So I thought it was nice when I went, I had like a little mini pack of face wipes. And so when I would like sit down to eat, I would like wipe my face off, and it would just give me like a nice little fresh feeling. It made me feel like I hadn't just been sweating under a gross mask all day.
That's a good idea.
And then another thing, if it's going to be super hot on your trip, which going forward, it's going to be super hot on your
It
trip
will
for the
be.
rest of the year, pretty much. Little mini fan, little battery powered fan or rechargeable fan, or a cooling towel. It's always a good friend, especially during COVID when you're having to wear a mask.
They do also sell those in Disney now, but you're going to pay the Disney premium for
I was about to say,
cooling towels and fans and stuff like that. So
you can get them pretty cheap on Amazon. So
or the dollar store going down.
Yeah. Wherever else, I don't recommend, unless there's one specifically that you want because you like the way it looks or you think it's cute. Just get a basic one and pay half the price you'd pay in the parks. The other thing I put in here is that I know I've touched on this in my other trip reports, but I think it's worth reiterating that the time of the post-apocalyptic empty parks is over. I'm glad to hear from your trip, Mario, that the lines are not crazy long, but doesn't necessarily mean that the crowds are going to be gone. Just because the lines are shorter doesn't mean that the people aren't there. So just kind of go into it expecting a normal crowd. And then if it works out that it is less crowded that day, then, kudos, good for you. But don't go in there expecting it to be empty like it was when the parks first reopened and people weren't traveling a lot yet, because those days are gone, unfortunately.
Well, and I also think another good piece to piggyback off of that is that because the parks are getting more crowded while staying at a limited capacity, things have a tendency to book quicker. I've seen a lot of discourse online with people saying that they bought tickets but never made their park reservations and then obviously can't get into the parks. Like, you're not guaranteed admission unless you make that reservation. So our normal rule of thumb of like make sure you plan pretty much whatever you want to do still kind of applies, but in a different degree here, even though there's no fast passes or anything like that.
And also kind of worth reiterating on that note is that all of the advice that we would normally give for a trip is still going to apply during COVID. Go into it with a good attitude. That's the main thing. Pick your couple of, 2 or 3 things like your must-dos and, set your sights on that and see everything else as an added benefit. Don't go into it expecting to get every single thing you want done, because you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment at that point.
Yep. And definitely more so now than ever, kind of manage expectations.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, I will say I had a lot of very positive things to say in terms of like what we were able to do, but I think most of that was based off of the expectation that we weren't going to be able to do those things. Like if I had planned in my head, like I'm going to be able to hit everything I wanted to in Hollywood Studios that day, and I didn't, like that would have been rough. And I mean, even at the end of that day, thinking to myself, oh, I'm in a line for Savi's and I'm also in the virtual queue, but there's a chance that I'm not going to get these things even though I'm waiting for them. Like that definitely helped me kind of tamper that expectation.
Yeah. But most importantly, have fun. Yeah. Enjoy it. As many people say, a bad day at Disney is better than a good day at work, right?
Here.
Another quick little tidbit to kind of throw in off of that, take advantage of things like the Voices of Liberty and Mariachi Cobra in Epcot, because while it's getting hotter and obviously you have that added, heat coming from wearing an extra piece of cloth on your face, having the chance to just sit down and watch them for like 1 or 2 of their sets was really nice. And
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't think we would have made it through our Epcot day if we didn't just take that break.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, cool.
That's what I've got this week. So good to wrap it up if you guys want to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so.
Then that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Station 71 podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. If you want to keep in touch with us, you can find links to all of our social media as well as our show notes at www.station71podcast.com. If you want to get in touch with us to give us an episode suggestion, you can email us at station71podcast@gmail.com or join our Discord where you can get in on all the conversation at bit.ly/s71chat. We hope you enjoyed your ride, and we'll see you real soon.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.